Welcome back to another Motel Coach training video. Today we're diving into GuestPoint PMS and we're going to be doing a general run through of the property management system. We're going to start with the Reservations tab. This is where all of the action happens. You're going to spend a lot of time day to day moving around this section of GuestPoint. You can create new reservations. You can cancel existing reservations. You do your check-ins from this page. You can check guests' account balances on this page. We're then going to move on to the Customers tab. The Customers tab. We've got Overview, Guests, Companies, and Agents. Now, Overview gives you a top-level view of what your property's doing. It shows which companies are generating a lot of revenue for you, and it shows what guests are generating a lot of revenue for you. You can also look at how many bookings are they generating. This is a good area when you're determining special rate codes for companies or guests. So if I was to look at our property here, the Goldmark Inn, I can see the top guests by number of bookings. I've got David here, and he's generated $7,697. So within this section, you can filter as well. So you can do 1 week, 2 weeks, the last month of bookings, all the way up to the last 12 months. And within this section, if you click through, you'll go through to that company's profile or you'll go through to that guest's profile. The next section we're going to click on is guests. From here, you can filter by the guest, and that will bring up that specific guest's number of stays and how much revenue they've generated. It does replicate the overview section, but you've got a bit more flexibility with the search and filter options. You've also got the opportunity if you want to create a guest in this section. Moving along, we've got companies and agents. I'm not going to go through that too much because it works in the same way. It's an extension of the overview on the Customers tab, but it gives you that extra flexibility with the search and the filter section. The next section is accounts. In this section, we've got overview, debtors, and non-residential accounts. We start with the debtors summary. This gives you a snapshot of what companies owe you money and how long they've owed you that money for. We can click into each company and it will bring up more detailed information on the debt that they owe the motel. Moving down, within the overview section, we've got daily summary. This gives us a snapshot of the charges that have been posted on room accounts. And then moving along one more, we've got the payment summary. So these are the payments that have been put through the EFTPOS machine via direct bank transfer, cash payments, and checks. Lastly, on the overview page, we've got non-residential accounts. Non-residential accounts function in the same way as a room account, but it's more of a temporary use account. It doesn't need a guest to be checked in to use that non-residential account. They don't need to be staying at the motel. So it might be an account for a wedding, as we've got here with Claire Smith. They might put a deposit down for F&B at your property. And you could store that money in a non-residential account if that guest is not staying on site. We're then going to move along. We've got debtors. Debtors allows you to search up companies that have money outstanding with you. So if we go here and we've got AOT, we can go here and we can type AOT. It just allows you to search for a specific company. And then moving along, we've got non-residential accounts. Same place again as the overview. We're not going to be using this tab a lot, but you can create a new non-residential account and you can also search for existing non-residential accounts. If your motel has a lot of non-residential accounts, you might start to use this feature more, but it's not an overly used feature in our experience. Moving along, we're going to go to the Management tab within GuestPoint PMS. The Management tab is broken into three main sections: Daily Tasks, Setup, and GuestPoint Pay. Daily Tasks. This is the stuff that you're doing on the daily, and you might not be using each section, but if we cover a few of the main ones now. Housekeeping. This is where you're allocating rooms to your housekeepers to clean. When you're inputting tasks through housekeeping, GuestPoint tracks that stuff so that you know how long a room's getting taken to clean on average. You can also understand how long are specific cleaners over a longer period taking to clean rooms. Are some slower than others? You've got your rollover. This is a critical element within GuestPoint, so every day you roll your system over. That means that all of the activity from one day is allocated to that day, and then anything that happens the next day is allocated to that day. You send invoices through here. You can send online check-in forms to guests prior to arrival. You can review your change log. Whenever anything gets changed on GuestPoint, you've got change log access, so you can see who's done that, and if a mistake occurs, you can use it to train staff on how to fix that problem. You can select your change log by users. I'm going to close that one down. You've got extras. So these are extras that are getting charged to rooms. So if we open that one up, so you've got breakfast, internet, newspaper. So we can print a report to show exactly how many breakfasts we've got for tomorrow, for example. So I could go tomorrow, extras to include, and I could print that report. And that might be a report I'm printing for our F&B team. You've got shift change. Shift change we're not going to cover too much. It is one of the premium features within GuestPoint. It just basically means that you can take a snapshot of payment totals at a certain time during the day. If you have morning staff in your restaurant and then evening staff, you might use this functionality. Moving along, we've got deposit follow-up. Deposit follow-up is a tool that allows you to track deposits that need to be paid by guests. So oftentimes, if you've got a big event coming up, you'll require a deposit from that guest in advance. You can put in a deposit follow-up in the reservation. You set a date and an amount, and it will be recorded here for deposit follow-ups. And it's indicated in red here when the due date for the follow-up for the deposit has passed. We can print our arrival forms. Arrival forms or registration cards is a way to collect guest details at check-in. And you can also, within this section, you can also print blanks. So printing blanks just gives you some blank paper with all of the registration forms on it so that you can take guest information sometimes when the system goes offline, for example. If you select print today's, it's just going to have the guests that are on arrival for today. And we can then filter by room number or guest. If we want to print by guest, it'll then be printed alphabetically as well, so that'll help us find guests when they arrive. Last part within daily tasks is review credit card log. The credit card log just helps you track who's opened up and accessed a credit card. You want to keep guest payment information secure, and this is an extra layer of security. If a guest's card is activated, you can look up who's accessed it. Setup. This is where we're managing rates, promotions, inventory, and we've also got tools like the Revenue Maximizer. The Revenue Maximizer allows us to set rules to increase and decrease our room rates based on certain requirements. So if it's 0 to 3 days before arrival, we've got our short range booking rule here. If the property is under 70%, we're going to reduce our rate by $10. If, however, the property is over 90%, we're going to increase our rates by $10. This tool is then set on automatic, and you need to put a lot of thought into how you're going to adjust your rates based on your occupancy levels. The next section is channels. This is your connection with your channel manager. In this instance, we've got SiteMinder. Your channel manager connects you to Booking.com, Expedia, and other online travel agents. Moving down, we've then got our external sales channels. So we've got Booking.com, QuickBeds, What If, for example. We're then going to go back to setup. Moving down the page, we've got configuration. This is where you're setting everything up for your property. Setting up the email templates, photos for your rooms. You're configuring the features and descriptions for your rooms. Setting up housekeeping. You can add housekeepers to GuestPoint so that when you allocate rooms in the morning, you select that housekeeper and allocate them rooms. You can narrow it down to allow certain time for different rooms, and you can also create different cleaning types. So you can do general area cleans, deep cleans, stay over cleans. Moving along, we've got transaction accounts. Transaction accounts covers all of your different accounts. So you've got payment types like EFTPOS, Visa, MasterCard, American Express, cash. And then you've got your transaction charges like room charge, breakfast charge, newspaper charge. Scrolling down further, we've got our profile fields, booking source and competitors. Booking sources allows you to select a certain type of source for each booking that you receive. So it might be a telephone booking, it might be a travel agent like Booking.com making the booking, and you can allocate that to that booking, which then allows you to understand where your bookings are coming from on an overall basis. Automated emails and text messages. GuestPoint allows you to pre-create emails and text messages, which can be sent pre and post stay. This automation allows you to save a lot of guest communication time. Let's quickly open that one up, and you can see that you've got pre-organized templates for this property so that when we check out a guest or pre-arrival, for example, we can automatically send them pre-formulated communication. Users and rights. This is an important section as a motel manager. You've got the ability to set up users for your property, and you've also got the ability to manage what they can and can't access. So we can create a new user, and we can also set the rights. So sometimes when I have a new member start, I might not want them to have access to everything. I'm certainly not going to let them adjust rates to start with. The last section within the Management tab is GuestPoint Pay. Typically motels have their property management system like GuestPoint PMS, and then they've got a separate EFTPOS machine. GuestPoint Pay brings the two together. It means that when you take a payment in GuestPoint, your EFTPOS machine will automatically process that payment. So you can take a payment prior to a guest arrival in GuestPoint, or you can still take it when the guest arrives through GuestPoint as well. It just means it's a more seamless, fast process. Moving on to reports, you've got reports for accounts, so we can look at debtor information, how much money is outstanding currently. We can look at room yield, daily transactions. Moving along, we've got transactions. Under this section, you can look all of the room account charges, discounts, deposits and payments. And you've got a lot of filter information here as well. You could do a select rollover date. You could sort by booking source. So I only want to look at payments from booking.com, or maybe I want to only look at a certain company. Moving along to reservations. The reservations report brings up information from the reservation screen, and you can really filter down, the same as the transactions section. So you can do booking date from to, you could do it based on the check-in dates, check-out dates. You could do a status, whether it's reserved, no-show, cancelled. You can do booking source. Moving down, we've got a lot of additional filters as well. So you can do it by room category, room type. So I could look up reservations just for king suite rooms. And you could also do just based on rate. You could look up reservations created just by one of your staff members. So you might have a staff member who you're not 100% happy with how they're creating reservations. You could filter by their name on a weekly basis, bring up a list of reservations they've created, and you can just review them and go through it with them and work on things that they can improve on. You can do just company reservations, and also you could filter by promotion. So if you have like a promotion running for 1 month, you can work out how much revenue have I generated for that promotion code. The customer report section allows you to bring up information about your customers. You can export it to an Excel spreadsheet. And when I say customers, that's guests, companies, and also agents. So you can look up how much revenue has a certain guest generated, or you could bring up a report which shows how much all of your guests have generated in customer revenue. You could then maybe use that report to identify key customers that you want to offer better rates to, or maybe you want to give them a corporate rate so that it's easier for them to book with you. Moving along, so same thing again under the guest section, you've got companies and agents. It just allows you to bring up information that you can use to develop your motel's performance. So we might do another one here and do company revenue. And that's going to bring up all of the companies. It shows the number of room nights and the amount of total revenue. So if we were to, instead of exporting this as a PDF, we take it into Excel, we can then filter, and we're going to filter by the companies that are staying with us for the largest amount of revenue or room nights. And then we might say, okay, for the top 10, we're going to offer corporate rates. You might not necessarily set up a corporate rate for your companies, but you might say, for the top 50 companies that stay at my motel each year, I'm going to get all of their key contact information, and I'm going to follow up with them quarterly just to make sure that everything is working well for them and to gauge upcoming demand as well. The last thing you want at your motel is, if you've got a big corporate client, you don't want to lose them to another property and not to take any action. You want to understand, are they always happy? Is there anything you can do to improve? And the last section within reports is custom reports. Custom reports is really its own tool. It's got a lot of moving parts, and it's really something that you can spend a lot of time with, but you can also get a lot of benefit if you put in the work. Next tab we're going to look at is the Dashboard tab. The Dashboard tab gives you a great little snapshot of how your motel's performing. You can also look at historical figures as well. So on this section here, we've got revenue. We've got revenue for November 2025, and we've got revenue for November 2024. Because this is just a demo property, the revenue figures aren't reflecting anything, but in your own property, it gives you a really good clear snapshot of how you're performing compared to the previous year. The next tab within Dashboard is the Revenue tab. This allows you to look at revenue over a certain period of time, so we can select a start date and then we can select an end date. Once we've selected the start and end date, we can then have in one comparison date here and another one here. So the comparison date will run for the same length of time as your initial start and end date. So this one 1st to the 5th, this one here will be 1st to the 5th but in 2024, and this one in 2023. We can then go down and filter into smaller revenue sections within your motel. So you might want to track your performance from previous years for breakfast sales. You could go breakfast and then apply filters. This allows you to look at your overall performance, but also to step back and filter further into your property to understand, is this revenue area doing as well as last year? Sometimes your motel might perform better overall, but maybe breakfast sales are really struggling. As the motel manager, while the top line performance is critical, sometimes to improve your motel's performance overall, you need to break down into department revenue. You need to understand how each section of the business is running. Once you understand which area is struggling, you can then put in place a plan to get that area of the motel working well again. Moving to the next section now, we've got occupancy. Occupancy works in the same way that revenue does. You set a start and end date for your report, and then you put in 2 comparison rates. Moving further along, we've got booking source. This report is useful to understand where your bookings are coming from, but you can also understand the trend. Is Booking.com taking more and more bookings each year? Or am I starting to see more and more Expedia bookings each year? If you're starting to be more and more reliant on a travel agent like Booking.com or Expedia, maybe you need to have a look more at your direct booking strategy. And this report allows you just to understand the trend for that. Into the last category, so we've got the Sales Analyzer. The Sales Analyzer lets you understand how many rooms have been sold, and it lets you filter based on a number of variables. You can look at the date that the booking was made, the stay date, which source the booking came from. So you might look at how many King Suite rooms have I sold through Booking.com. So I could click on that one and apply filter, and it will say King Suite, we've sold 11,600 rooms. And you can see here that I've got booking date from 2012 to 2025. So I might make that instead. I might just be looking for the calendar year. So I might say, click on that one. And now for the King Suite, through Booking.com only, I've sold 1,600 rooms in 2025. We're going to just briefly touch on the last few tabs down the bottom here. We've got the Message Hub. When you're text messaging or SMS and email through GuestPoint, all of the messages will populate in here. It allows one central point where you can communicate with guests, saving you time to focus on running the motel. Moving further down, we've got the online check-in portal and competitor intel. You've then got the Help Center, which GuestPoint sets up. This gives you really good information broken down to the section you're in GuestPoint. So if you ever have trouble doing something in GuestPoint, it's always a great first point of call to jump onto the Help Center. And then failing that, I've always found that GuestPoint's fairly quick and helpful with their support services. Moving down again, and the last section is what's new. This is an announcement section. It'll give you information about new releases with GuestPoint, new features, and new integrations. GuestPoint is continually updating, improving, and developing further integration with other providers to make the motel operator, to allow motel operators to operate in a more streamlined approach. Thank you very much for watching. That's everything for today's GuestPoint walkthrough. We've tried to keep it light. GuestPoint has so many features and functions to cover that we just can't go into too much depth in this video. We do, however, have a very comprehensive library of tutorials on how to use GuestPoint PMS. And in our description section, we've also got a link to our full GuestPoint PMS course. This course gives you access to use GuestPoint PMS while you're running through our course. It's the perfect way to learn and build up confidence using the GuestPoint Property Management System.